I have a lot of anticipation for the new remaster of Commandos 2. Not only was this game a genre-defining masterpiece for Pyro Studios back in 2001, but it also had a special place in my heart as one of my most favourite games of all time. Commandos 2 was the reason I played stealth-based games like Metal Gear and Hitman. When I'm sneaking around Camp Omega or walking around Sapienza, sometimes I'll just think, man, I miss Commandos. Not that these games aren't fun or anything, hell no, these are great games. I just tend to feel this way from time to time because Commandos 2 isn't the same as it used to be. There's this dreaded thing called Windows 10 that made a lot of the games unplayable for many people. I couldn't run the game properly at all. I had full screen display issues, making every pause to the menu, cutscene, and quick load a jarring minute wait, as the screen freaked out, not knowing what resolution to display. I couldn't run Commandos 2 after a while, which prompted me to try more of the first game, Behind Enemy Lines, and the third game, Destination Berlin. Recently, I was able to find a mod that fixed many of the problems I encountered with Men of Courage, but for now, I want to briefly touch on the first game so that we're up to speed with the second. Behind Enemy Lines is a real-time strategy game that puts you, the player, in control of 6 commandos in a World War II setting that are each equipped with unique abilities and gear. First, you have the Green Beret, who can carry heavier objects like barrels and boxes. He can hide in the snow with his digging tool, distract enemies with his radio machine, and wield a knife for close-quarters combat. Next, you have the Sniper. This commando is the only one who can wield a sniper rifle. Thirdly, we have the Diver. His unique ability is being Australian. No, but seriously, he has the ability to operate boat rafts, has access to a harpoon gun to use on enemies, and the ability to swim underwater to remain undetected. The fourth in our lineup is the Sapper, the only commando who can use demolition charges and grenades along with bear traps. Next up is the Driver. This guy is the only one who can drive vehicles. This includes trucks and tanks. He is also the only one who carries a grease gun, which can take down multiple enemies extremely quickly. He also has a shared ability that allows him to carry medical bags to heal other units. In addition to all that, he can operate enemy machine guns as well. And finally, we have the Spy. This man can disguise himself as an officer if the player can retrieve a uniform. He can distract enemies and influence them to do certain things. Adding on to this incredible ability, you may also use a syringe with poison to kill enemies silently. He's basically the Agent 47 of your team. Behind Enemy Lines was a very tactical experience. It required the player to study the environment very carefully, make a concrete plan of attack, and ensure that as you execute a plan, that no one in your unit is killed, because if anyone in the Commandos unit died, the game was over. Each mission featured a wonderfully crafted terrain that was built like a giant puzzle, and it was up to the player to utilize the Commando's special abilities to solve the various problems you could encounter in just one mission. Every mission didn't feature every commando. Sometimes you might only have a couple of men, at other times you may have up to 4 or 5, and in the final mission you could have access to every single one of them. The player was always challenged in at least some way and had to understand what the men could and couldn't do in order to advance within a level. Let's take a look at Mission 3 for a quick example. The objective that the player is given is to retrieve explosives from a nearby German facility. Once the commandos secure the demolition charges, they can use them to blow up the dam that is close by. The issues in this mission become noticeable the moment you reach the outskirts of the base. There are simply too many guards patrolling around the entrance, and to make matters worse, there is a machine gun emplacement over the top of the dam. There is also an emplacement nest covering most of the river passage below the dam, so if there is to be any advancement of the unit, you may have to look at who is present in your squad. While there may be numerous troops surrounding the area, the Spy can walk past all of them effortlessly. All you'd need do is secure some officer clothes. By looking at the small camp just east of the base, we can see that there appears to be some hanging around. While there is still an enemy patrol guarding your entry point, the first part of your overall strategy becomes a little bit clearer. Assisting the Spy so he can retrieve the uniform is the first step. and the only way to cross the river is with the diver's raft. From here, we must clear out the camp and safely secure the clothing. Row back and make our way inside the camp with our spy and ensure a safe passage through the base. The game is highly methodical, but also allows the player to express large amounts of creativity within a single level. You can tackle objectives however you want. This sandbox-style freedom is a crucial element to the game. It provides almost endless amounts of replayability that keeps players engaged, no matter what. This sandbox-style approach to stealth games is comparable to the Hitman series, where creatively stalking, learning and planning was key to a good hit. I'm going to recommend that you try Behind Enemy Lines before the second Commandos game. I will start covering Men of Courage, while making small references to the previous games like changes, subtle or noticeable, and different gameplay improvements. Commandos 2 was the sequel to Behind Enemy Lines. This sequel aimed to improve just about everything from the original game. In fact, the very moment you boot up the first training mission, the improvements are almost immediately noticeable. Instead of only having one camera angle to view areas with, we now have 4 angles that are used to survey and locate different objects or items. Instead of just being out in the open land of enemy territory, we now have various buildings and interior structures to sneak through. All the Commandos once had their own individual backpacks containing their unique items. Now there is a completely new inventory system in which you can stack multiples of different items, and move them along a grid to fit them in different locations. Any Commando can carry items even if they cannot equip it, meaning the Green Beret could probably free up some of the Sapper's inventory space by holding one of his explosives, but he won't be able to plant the bomb and detonate it. Pyro Studios also expanded the merit system. The merit system was a way of calculating the player's score at the end of a mission in Behind Enemy Lines. If you are able to quickly proceed through a level while also killing large amounts of Nazis, the game would reward you with a higher score. Now in Commandos 2, the merit system is based upon how much of a level you explored, how many guards you neutralized without shooting them, how many guards you neutralized without killing them, how many secondary objectives were completed, not being injured, not triggering alarms, mission time, and how many guards were neutralized in general. In the first game, players could split the camera into different sections to monitor specific areas of the map. This camera system remains in the second game, but also comes with some new features too. You can now track enemy movements, track the vehicles that you are currently operating, and divide the screen to combine these two systems together. So for example, I can track someone on one screen while playing the game on another. Commandos can also look inside doorways or other kinds of entrances to reveal a small view of what is in another room. It's comparable to Sam Fisher's optic cable in Splinter Cell. The device let you look under doors to see if any enemies were nearby. I mentioned before that there are stackable items in the game now. This means you have some items that can distract or attract guards. You can use cigarettes to temporarily attract a guard somewhere. You can do the same with wine, sleeping pill or otherwise. There is even dog food which you can throw to distract enemy guard dogs, and if you pill them you may knock them out temporarily. Now onto the Commandos themselves. How have they all been improved? Every Commando now has the ability to knock out Nazis naturally, and with most of the men can tie them up. Personally, I think it's superb that everybody can do this now. The game rewards you for taking out baddies non-lethally, so this change makes a lot of sense. But it also makes every Commando feel a little bit more useful in comparison to the first game, since only 3 out of the 6 units could kill enemies up close. The instant you start up Training Mission 1, you'll notice the first of 3 new arrivals to the team. The Sapper in this mission is partnered with the Thief, Lockpicker and Pickpocketer Extraordinaire. In addition to being able to unlock doors and safes and certain boxes, he is a master... elephant rider? Oh, okay. Alright, that's fine. The first 2 training missions are perfect scenarios that flawlessly prepare you for each and every kind of potential situation a mission can introduce. The first mission allows the player to utilize the new and improved actions units can perform. You'll start by knocking out guards, tying them up, to using the line of sight button, which allows you to understand what a Nazi can and can't see. You do this via the tab button, but you can also use the same key to place a red marker down on the map. If an enemy is looking in the general direction of that marker, their line of sight is displayed. This is a handy tool if you wish to know where you could potentially move to. This mission also displays a miniature tutorial when you click on something you've not clicked on before. I like this tutorial, mostly because it doesn't stop the action of a mission. It doesn't feel as if you're constantly being told to stop and wait for some big explanation on how to do the simplest of actions. You simply learn as you play. And since the first two missions are just training missions, the game doesn't expect you to perfect them. You aren't even given a merit score, which makes the beginning missions a rather relaxing and straightforward experience. I especially love how the mission forces you to interact with the environment and inventory system. The thief must swing across the wires in order to lockpick a box that contains the sapper's equipment. Once you retrieve the items, you'll make your way back to the sapper and give him cutters, which allows him to cut the barbed wire fences. After pulling out your mine detector and deactivating the mines, the sapper is free to kill the rest of the soldiers. This mission perfectly introduces you to the methodical process you'll be using to formulate your own plans in later missions. Admittedly, this mission is a little bit more linear than most Commandos missions, but in terms of introducing you to the new systems, it does a fantastic job. The sandbox-style gameplay from the first game makes its return in the second training mission, and from there it makes a full return throughout the game. Training Mission 2 highlights the more action-based scenarios that future operations could include, but also introduces players to the new auto-fire system. By pressing X on the keyboard, Commandos can ready their weapons. If an enemy steps within their range, they will fire until the enemy is either dead or their side of a Nazi is lost. In addition to this, we also have the new function of being able to order allied soldiers around if you are within range of them. I personally like how you can add more men to your squad at times if the scenario allows it. I don't think I liked the range of this ability though. You have to be within a few feet of a person to issue an order to them, and if they are about 3 meters away you can't issue any commands to them. At all. You can remain in control of an ally so long as you have him selected, but if you run into a building and then select a commander who is outside, you cannot switch back to him. Meaning you'd have to make a commando run into the building yourself just to be able to select them again. This particular training mission also includes an enemy wave that will swarm the area, and to make matters worse, there's a tank to deal with as well. The game lets you prepare for the incoming attack by allowing you to choose when the wave starts. This gives the player enough time to feel comfortable with the new abilities they will no doubt discover, like placing mines with your sapper, or posting your newfound allies to make good use of their vastly superior weapon range. Oh, fucking Jesus, look at that thing. The mission lets you control the Green Beret and the driver too. I'm not here to discuss the driver just yet, but I would like to shine the spotlight on my friend the Green Beret here. His digging tool from the previous game has gotten a bit of an upgrade this time around. He can now dig himself into the grass as well as snow. If you find an area with deep enough ground, you can hide yourself. This ability goes one step further and even allows you to bury enemies too. The sapper also has access to different kinds of bombs, depending on if you can find them. You can either have remotely detonated charges or timed explosives. What better way to introduce the next few newbies to the team than with the first official Commandos 2 mission, Night of the Wolves. The thief receives his first mission, although according to the baffling timeline of both this game and the next, it isn't. Anyway, Lupin is tasked with meeting a contact at German-occupied naval base in France. While approaching the base, he notices an escapee running away from several guards. After following the member of the resistance, you find him, coughing and slowly dying. He informs you that there are Allied sailors being held within the base and that they must be rescued. Upon the slow death of this brave man, he gives you the ownership of his dog named Whiskey, in hopes you'll take care of him. Whiskey isn't really a commando, but is merely just an animal used to distract guards by barking. Lupin considers him a part of the team, and so do I. He can be used to also store items onto, and if another commando blows a whistle, he can run after whoever blew it and deliver the items. It's a handy trick and saves a lot of time if the mission you are on is expansive and you needed to separate the commandos for whatever reason. In the building nearby, we sneak inside and find Natasha, the Russian seductress. Lips is the 8th commando in the lineup, but isn't present in many missions. She only shows up in this mission, The Giant in Haiphong, and Is Paris Burning? She acts much like the spy. She can distract guards and make them face in any direction, so long as she is within range. She may also wield a sniper rifle, but can't fire it unless she takes off her disguise. She also may not punch and tie up anyone. but like everyone else, she can at least move bodies. You'll begin sneaking through the base alongside Whiskey and Lips. Natasha mentions that the key we need are being held by an assistant to the general who commands the area. In order to obtain said keys, they must first make their way to the canteen and slip some pills into his wine. From here, the level starts opening up. You have a number of primary and secondary objectives to complete from this point. Secondary objectives can sometimes make main objectives a bit easier, or provide clues on how to progress through a level if you're feeling stuck on where to go or what to do. The objectives for about 90% of the game are straightforward and need little explanation. At times, objectives can be a little bit misleading, but most of the time it's fine. Usually when you click on an objective, you can make a little arrow appear to give you directions on where to go, just in case you're confused about something. The amount of interaction you have within the environment is superb, and Night of the Wolves really emphasizes using creative methods to solve problems by making those creative methods the actual objectives. Obviously, the future missions cannot do this same tactic since that would become repetitive, but in order to truly understand what you really can and can't interact with, Mission 1 is a perfect showcase of all the things you can do within a mission. My favourite aspect of this mission was pilling the wine box and watching everybody being knocked out simultaneously. It's a true spy-like moment that's most likely going to make you feel like James Bond or something. After nabbing the keys, you're free to enter into the officer's quarters, provided Natasha was distracting him, then find pieces of the Enigma machine and its codes. Once you contact HQ, Natasha is requested to leave the area, but the thief sadly has to remain in the base until morning. 4 more commandos are requested to rescue the sailors and destroy most of the base to cripple production, and to make escape a little easier. I like the added detail of the codec conversations changing in relation to who operates the radio. You get roughly the same conversation, but it's a nice touch all the same. Enter Das Boot, a mission that expands Night of the Wolves by a significant margin, and gives you access to even more rooms and hangars than in the previous level. This mission opens up new ways to explore and invade the base, and also provides you with even more objectives. Although there might be less guards populating some areas you already explored, the mission is now set in the daytime, meaning lines of sight from the guards are expanded and can see you easier than at night. A guard's line of sight is divided into 2 sections. You can crawl in the first section without being seen, but if you stand, you'll stick out. If you enter the closest section, no matter what your stance is, you will be seen. In the night time, you can stand in the furthest section and remain undetected, however. We now have access to our old Aussie friend Finns. Finns has access to all of his equipment from the last game, but has some changes that both expand his abilities. Finns can now dive underwater, but instead of just being told that he is submerged, you can now access complete underwater sections and have full control of the diver. The harpoon gun is also used here to shoot at hostile animals like sharks or crocodiles. You can't use the harpoon gun on land anymore, but you can throw knives from far away to kill enemies a little easier. Then there is Jesus, fuck! The Spy, appropriately named Spooky, has also had a couple of upgrades. The Spy can now take enemy uniforms from anyone, thanks to the new inventory system. You can now simply strip clothes from someone, Hitman style, and assume the rank of the person you stole from. However, there's a catch to this uniform system that understandably not many people might like. Similar to Hitman Absolution's disguise system, anyone of the same rank as the uniform you stole will instantly notice that you are a spy. I don't mind how this system works in the Das Boot mission specifically, but when in missions that have large numbers of officers and generals like the final mission, it can be frustrating at times. For me personally, I didn't mind it so much, but in some circumstances it did make me a little peeved. Once you wear a disguise, you can then distract enemy soldiers. If the person you are distracting is a regular soldier, either wearing blue or brown, you can order them to look in a particular direction or move to somewhere you'd like. You cannot make them move too far away, but the distance as to which you can is usually good enough. The spy syringe has 20 shots. You typically just start with 3 though, but there's nothing stopping you from finding more poison in the furniture and levels. You can decide how much of a dose to inject this time around. 1 dose will paralyze a soldier, 2 shots will knock someone out for a short time, and 3 will kill him. These actions replace the knockout ability, but that doesn't stop him from moving bodies if someone else ties them up, or if you poison someone twice and then tie them up. Once you have obliterated the base and stolen the Enigma machine, you and the sailors escape in the U-boat. Unfortunately, while the Commandos are travelling through the sea, a hostile German vessel catches them. Mines are deployed, and the U-boat is forced to surface, and the Commandos are forced to surrender. The diver is the lucky lad of the bunch, as he is the only escapee, and he's left to rescue his friend single-handedly. Commandos in terms of plot isn't as thick as you think. It's very thin, with only the European theatre of missions forming anything resembling a plot. And this is where the plot is put on halt. Once you enter missions based around the Pacific theatre, there is no further development of the story until you're back in Central Europe again. Once you free the sailors and your fellow commandos, you secure the Enigma machine once again, and the spy and Green Beret exfiltrate the area via a stolen plane, while all the others take the sub, because that worked so well last time. With the Enigma machine secured in an Allied headquarters, some of the commandos are requested to the Asia-Pacific theatre in order to provide assistance for those defending against the Imperial Japanese forces, thus beginning the Pacific campaign missions. I want to take this opportunity to start discussing what I like and dislike about the game in more depth. Target Burma is the first mission where I truly started noticing some flaws in Commandos 2, which built up over time, causing me to be slightly annoyed with the game in some areas. The small problems eventually started building up, painting an almost entirely different picture to what I once thought was a perfect game. I'm aware there's no such thing as a perfect game, but I had initially praised Commandos 2, ever since I experienced it as a child. The challenge of sneaking through levels, the grueling challenge of finding out how you're going to eliminate patrols, the meticulous planning as you study the environment, and so many other elements that the game housed provided a match made in heaven for me, both in the past and in present. I had been playing the game with rose-tinted vision for quite some time, and only after playing the game once more on very hard mode, I finally understood how I truly felt about Men of Courage. Firstly, I'd like to discuss the backpack. The inventory system is made with square grids that can have items placed inside them that take up a number of squares that range from 1 to 5. You can rearrange items to make other equipment pieces fit inside the backpack easier, or you can just make it look tidier. You can stack multiple items of the same type too, so if you have a health kit and you find another, you can move the ones you've found into your backpack, and they will be combined. You can stack up items to a maximum of 10, but once that cap is reached, you may no longer carry that type of item in a separate stack, meaning another commando will have to carry the item if you want it. This isn't game breaking, but I don't really understand why I simply can't have multiples of an item if I have room in the backpack for some more. Every item is given a separate cap limit, so the game doesn't really have a reason to not allow me to do this. I also found that there was a lack of division when it came to item distribution. At some point in the game, you may want to take an enemy's rifle. All enemy rifles start out with 3 bullets, despite them having unlimited ammo if an enemy uses them, and the cap limit on rifle bullets is 15. If you have 13 or 14 bullets, you cannot stack up the bullets anymore until you either destroy your current ammunition pool or fire 1 to 2 shots in the air just to receive a full stock. This is annoying in missions that focus on more action-based scenarios like in Mission 10, Saving Private Smith, where having a weapon can be extremely useful if you need to eliminate guards from far away and can't get up close. It's a small issue in hindsight, but still annoying in my opinion. The quantity of particular items can also be frustrating depending on the situation. Medical kits usually come in stacks of 3s or 5s. If you found a 5-stack medical bag, that would be very helpful, but what wouldn't be is finding another stack that only contains 3 kits. This means that you'll only be carrying around 8 health kits in total unless you used them, which I rarely had to even on very hard mode. But that doesn't change the fact that at times I wanted and sometimes needed these items to be stacked, and the game just wouldn't allow it. I believe one way this system could have been improved is that, for example, if I had 8 health kits and I found a stack of 5 in a cupboard, the game could simply let me take the 2 I needed to help me complete my 10 stack, and leave the other 3 in the cupboard. Perhaps a simple subtraction method could have also been added in weapon ammo collection. To use my bullet example again, say I needed just 2 bullets to get 15. Instead of just firing away 2 random shots into the sky, why not let the game subtract 2 bullets from the 3 in the cartridge? Enemy rifles fire unlimited ammunition, so why not just let me take 2 bullets? The biggest problem concerning stack quantity and the inventory system itself is when you must provide weapons to Allied soldiers in Target Burma and disguises to Allied prisoners in Castle Kolditz. You must provide the local Gurkha militia with weapons. On my first run-through of this mission, I spent a decent amount of time collecting weapons so I could arm them with the appropriate weapons, but I didn't know at the time that you couldn't divide items. When I wanted to give the Gurkhas my weapons, I had already collected 10 Arasaka rifles and couldn't individually hand them to each Gurkha. This meant that I had to give 10 Arasakas to 1 Gurkha and redo the entire process all over again. What's worse in my view is that because there are 6 Gurkhas in total, it means you have to constantly swap to another commando that must hand their weapons to a Gurkha individually. Then after those tedious exchanges are over, do it 2 more times because there's only 4 commandos, meaning only 4 rifles could be carried by each of them, and then hand them to a Gurkha. I think the developers may have realized that these types of exchanges between Allied soldiers was far too time-consuming, and thus decided not to make it a focus for many missions. To be clear, Target Burma is the only mission in this game that greatly recommends that you use allies to fight alongside you, but it does bring the stacking system down tremendously, and what's even worse is that it wasn't even fixed in the 3rd game in the series. So imagine you're me and you just wrote and recorded these 2 paragraphs and then had the magical idea that perhaps you should triple check to make sure this was true before recording, and then you find out that actually yeah, I can divide items. The true flaw here is that the developers didn't actually mention anywhere that you could. I had to look this up online instead. I checked the game manual both on PC and PS2 and even looked in the in-game instruction manual, and there wasn't even a hint that this was a possibility. Now that I know you can, it does make playing Burma and Kolditz a hell of a lot more fun now that the tedium of the inventory management is gone, but it's still something that needs to be addressed. Please add this in the instruction manual for when this game is remastered in HD. Secondly, there's the Commandos themselves. In Behind Enemy Lines, each unit had a distinct role that could all perform unique tasks. No one could handle grenades or explosives like the Sapper. No one could sneak up close to Nazis and knife them in the back like the Green Beret, but no one could drive tanks or trucks better than Tread. Tread was your getaway driver, and he was also a medic who could heal other units. In addition to this, he could also operate enemy machine gun emplacements and wielded a grease gun. This grease gun could fire rapidly and take down multiple enemies extremely quickly. Tread was, in effect, a walking powerhouse of weaponry. And that's what made him unique. His offensive abilities weren't like the Green Beret, who dealt damage up close, and certainly wasn't like Duke, whose focus was long-range sniping. He was the mid-ranged menace who had a powerful arsenal of weapons to chew through the crowds with. Now in Commandos 2, everyone has been improved so that they can not only wield any gun they pick up, except for sniper rifles, that's for Duke and Natasha, flamethrowers and bazookas are for the sapper only as well, but can also drive almost any vehicle aside from tanks or amphibious armoured vehicles. That's all Tread's department. Tread can still operate MGs, but the sapper can also do this too, and since everyone can wield MP40s now, the driver isn't really the grease gun guy anymore. He doesn't even have access to a longer range with MP40s, making that unique quality about his machine gun supremacy seem all the more shameful. I find it quite funny that Duke has a longer range with any weapon, meaning that he's better at using submachine guns than Tread now. The new abilities Tread has, in my opinion, don't really make up for his downgrade. He now has access to a tripwire, which knocks out running enemies. I've honestly tried using this wire, but I could never get it to work, and only really used it out of a sense of compulsion. He may also dig holes into the ground, and if an enemy steps onto the dig spot, an enemy will fall through and disappear. Tread also has access to bear traps this time. I don't think the sapper's going to lose sleep over it though, and neither will I. He may also use gas grenades and Molotov cocktails. The Molotovs are honestly the most inconsistent explosive in the entire game. At times they can set alight up to 5 enemies that are all relatively close to each other, but at other times they seemingly do nothing. In certain indoor environments, no matter how much you rotate the camera, you simply cannot throw them, and even if you find the sweet pixel spot that allows you to throw it, it might not even kill the targets you're aiming for. Anyway, I think I'm done picking on Tread. Sorry, man. Every commando has a distinct weapon, item, and unique ability that they all have, but it doesn't exactly make them stand out like used to in the previous games. I feel as if the commandos have minimal differences that at the very least define their role well enough. Overall, it's an improvement. I just think that maybe Pyro Studios overdid it in a few places. Some commandos just feel way more useful than others. My third point that I'd like to talk about is the overall difficulty of Men of Courage. I was initially going to hop on the old bandwagon of when you get a packet of cigarettes, the game is over criticism that I often see in comments on this game in forums all too frequently. But I'm not sure I agree with this assessment. Getting past guards using distraction-based items is fairly easy, and with that I agree. I even understand where people are coming from when they say this. You can pull off some pretty neat tricks using cigs and bottles and absolutely breeze through some encounters with most guards. I don't think that makes the game easy though. What does make the game easy, at least in my opinion, is the fact that you can interrupt your own animations when you change stances or tie up guards. The strange part about these animation cancels are simply that when you are luring a guard away so that you can tie someone up, there's no tension in that situation because guards will be gone for about 10 seconds, and once an enemy is knocked out, all you gotta do is hold shift and click, and once the symbol changes, click again. This happens in less than a second. It's as if you never did any tying at all. Also, if you tie up a guard and move away, they simply tie up themselves. It's goofy, and honestly I don't mind it, because as much as it should be a flaw, I don't really believe it is. On one hand, these animation cancels can actually improve the experience, since completing the game as quickly as possible is something the game advises you to do due to the merit system. The merit system incentivizes you not to be caught and so that you don't kill anyone. So combining this with a fast mission time, the animation seems to aid the idea of being quick and efficient. I guess since the commandos all have a tying up animation, a self-imposed rule set of waiting till the animation is over till you pick up a guard could be enforced if you wanted a more immersive experience, but if you want to speedrun, then the option to animation cancel is still there. I believe that due to the commandos having more abilities and options than their previous appearances, that the game is slightly easier than the first. If I were to compare both of the merit systems together, however, I think that's where the difference in difficulty between the two games kind of reveals themselves. Due to the amount of requirements to get a 4 or 5 star rating, you could easily argue that Men of Courage is a tougher game, but I think the gameplay requirements in order to get a high star grade isn't that hard to achieve, whereas the first one really gave me a tough time due to how big the lines of sight were from the guards and how easily taken down your units were. Either way, I don't think Commandos 2 is disappointing or anything in terms of difficulty. I just think they were going for something different, and it mostly works. Throughout the levels you can find small books that contain small pieces of a picture. If you manage to collect every single torn piece, you can complete some nice looking illustrations, which also contains an entirely new level. These bonus missions can range from time trials in a speedboat to remixes of the first training camp mission. Some bonus missions even offer new challenges to already completed levels. Saving Private Smith and the Giant in Haiphong have these levels dedicated to furthering the current mission. It's almost like a miniature Part 2. There are some missions that are entirely new with the intention of challenging the player's knowledge of the mechanics to the extreme. Upon completion of one of these missions, you are awarded a medal to store in your officer's case. I enjoyed the level extensions and new levels alike. I found them to be far more fun since these bonus missions are not under the guise of the merit system. You're free to accomplish the mission however you wish, killing as many enemies as you please. So long as you complete the mission, anything goes. The merit system isn't entirely bad, I just feel there are tiny problems with it. For example, at the end of a mission, you can spend over an hour doing a mission, but if you only knocked out enemies and explored every area within a level and didn't load too often, you could get 4 out of 5 stars on your merit rating. Completing levels quickly and quick loading the game less and making sure you accomplish all objectives will guarantee 5 stars, but I found that in some missions, quick saving and quick loading frequently was required. In The Guns of Savo Island, the diver must find a blowtorch under the sea in a wrecked ship. However, there are patrolling Japanese forces who are under the sea as well as you. If you dive under the water and are caught within the sights of an enemy, you die instantly. The enemies are equipped with harpoon guns just like you, and the moment you're spotted, you won't be able to surface in time by the time they hit you. You can surface only the diver's head above the water in order to look around dry land to sneak ashore in most levels, but you can't do that process in reverse. You simply have to take a chance and hope you don't die instantly, ruining your merit score along the way. I can't tell you how badly it affects the score, however. I've completed levels with 4 stars where I loaded more than 50 times, and I still got away with a great rating, so hey, maybe it's not that bad. Without spoiling anything about the bonus missions too much, I will at least mention that I personally love bonus mission 12 the most out of all the unlockable missions. I think the levels that you find should be enjoyed on your own, since I wholeheartedly recommend you pick this series up anyway.